In this video, we're going to write code to delete a trip. So far, when we opened the edit trip module, we've done a few things. So we managed to get the trip details and fill the form using those details. We also managed to write code to submit the edit form. And now we're going to write code to delete a trip. So to delete a trip, we're going to send an AJAX call with the trip ID. And all we need to do is run a query saying delete the trip of ID, whatever the ID is. So we're going to delete a trip if we click on that button. So let's select the button first using its ID. So the ID of that button is delete trip. Okay, so we're going to use the click method, which will take a function in the parameter. So inside the function, we're just going to send an AJAX call, okay, with the trip ID. So let's copy an AJAX call from somewhere else. Okay, so the URL here is going to be the PHP file for deleting a trip. So it's going to be that one, delete trips.php. Okay, so the data we're going to be sending here is exactly the same. So we're going to send the trip ID. And to get the ID, we're going to use the invoker variable and get the data attribute trip ID. Okay, so if the AJAX call is successful, we're going to have a look at the return data. So basically what this file is going to do is going to run the query deleting the trip. If the query is successful, then it's not going to return anything. Okay, but if the query is not successful, it's going to return error. So if we've got anything returned, then we know that there has been an error, and we're just going to show an error message straight away. You can say something like, the trip could not be deleted. Please try again. Else, meaning that the query has run successfully, we're going to hide the module. Okay, so to hide the module, we can just select the module using its ID, which is edit trip module, and then use the module method and give it a parameter height. We've done this before. Okay, so once we have hidden the module, then we will need to show the trips again. So we're going to call the get trips function. Okay, and we don't need to hide any previous errors, okay, because once we hide the module, opening a new module is going to hide or empty any errors that we had earlier. So that's it for the JavaScript code. Now let's move to the PHP file. So first of all, we're going to start a session and connect to the database. Well, actually, we need to connect to the database, but we don't actually need a session start here because we're not going to be using any session variables. Okay, but I'm going to keep that as we have done it in all other PHP files. So let's create the query, which will delete the trip. So the syntax is delete from our table, which is car share trips. And the condition is where we've got a match of the trip ID. So let's create a variable trip ID. We're going to get the trip ID from the post array. And that's going to be the element of key trip ID. Well, actually, the key is that one, actually. Here we go. All right, so now let's run the query. Store the results inside a results variable. So again, this will take the connection link and the query. Now let's check if the query is not successful. So in that case, we're going to echo something. We can echo anything here. We're going to say error. Because anyway, in the code, we say that if this file returns anything, that means that the trip could not be deleted. Okay, and we're just going to show that error message. Okay, so now let's save and try our code. Okay, so let's try the first one. Delete. Okay, so that's been deleted. So great. Okay, so everything works. And our delete code is now complete. Okay, so before moving on, I'm just going to make a quick change to the styling to add some margin top to the my trips div. So it's called ID my trips. So let's add a margin top of 20 pixels, for instance, and also let's add a margin bottom of, let's go for 100, so that if we have too many trips, then it doesn't overlap with the footer. Okay, so let's save, refresh. Great. All right, so in the next video, we are going to move to the search algorithm.